Hello, beautiful humans, and welcome to Growing Through It, a podcast dedicated to bringing you clarity so that you can harness your curiosity and be the creator of your life. Hosted by me, Shanae Rowe. Hello, my lovely muffins. I hope you've been doing well since the last episode. Yeah, I always find it really weird sitting here and saying like hello to you guys because I am just talking to myself. But then I have to remember like, no, I'm talking to you in the future right now. And I just want to say I appreciate you guys so much for coming back and listening to another episode. So yeah, thank you and welcome to episode 14, which is all about envy. And I really want to spend this episode talking about what I have learned from envy, sort of what it is and how I think it can be a really useful tool that allows us to discover what we want from our lives. I think it's similar to fear, how I speak about fear as being sort of a signpost that points us in the direction of what we want from our lives. I think envy is quite a similar thing. It's an emotion that brings about a similar response. And maybe that's true of all uncomfortable emotions, right? Any sort of emotion that brings about a really uncomfortable but strong response, I find maybe tends to show us what we desire from our lives and what we want and what we're striving towards. Yeah, so maybe that's true about all emotions, but I'm going to be talking about envy and how I think that it points us towards what we want. It shows us our desires and what we're yearning for and sort of gives us direction as to where we want to go in our lives. So yeah, let's jump into the episode. First up, I want just to give a little definition of envy. I think sometimes we can use envy and jealousy interchangeably, but I want to sort of distinguish between the two because they are different, right? So, jealousy, we all know jealousy. We've experienced jealousy before, whether that's in, relationships or anything of the sorts. But jealousy is fearing that what we already have will be taken away from us, right? It comes from a place of insecurity and anxiety, and we can get really protective, right? Whereas envy, it's more of wanting what we don't have. And the emotions we sort of feel is a mix of admiration and resentment, right? Envy, it's defined as resentful awareness of the possession or advantage that's enjoyed by another person, right? It's wanting to have the same, our desire to have what someone else has. And it can also be described as experiencing pain at the sight of another person's good fortune, right? And it doesn't just have to be physical good fortune, right? It can be like a possession that someone has or a big achievement or, a milestone in their life. It can also be a skill set that someone else has or a quality or a characteristic or something about another person's character that we equally admire but also feel a little bit resentful that they have. So that's envy, right? And it is a little bit different to jealousy. I think sometimes we use them interchangeably, but they are different, right? And envy can look like a whole heap of different things, right? It can be us not celebrating another person's success, or it can be us even enjoying another person's setbacks or their misfortune, like really finding joy in someone else failing at something. That can be envy. It's also us judging other people and scrutinizing their decisions and feeling as though like everything they do, we have something to pick apart. Like every decision and choice that they make, we have something negative to say about it. Right? Envy can also look like us copying another person or competing with them. And it's also really important to note that when we are competing with another person, like they don't know. It's not like you're running a marathon and you all know that you're competing against each other for first place. envy, like competing with someone when envy is the motivator, is just a competition with yourself, and it's really going to leave you drained. And like, this other person has no idea what you're doing, and they have no idea that you're trying to copy what they're doing with their life, and the path that they're following. And envy can also look like us getting upset when other people are complimented for their achievements or their qualities, right? Have you ever been, in a social situation where maybe like you're part of a team or something, and one person is getting complimented for what they brought to that team, okay? And you're on the same team and you're there and you're getting upset and thinking like, why am I not the one getting complimented? Like, I did a good job too. Why am I not getting praised, right? That is also how envy can show up, right? And that's just a few of the ways that envy can show up and what it looks like. There's a whole range of other things that, envy is, and what it looks like and how it presents in our lives. But they're sort of like, I find that they're really common, you know, things to look out for when you're being envious. Like, how do you feel? Like, have you ever felt these things? And I'm going to say yes, because envy is such a common emotion, right? Everyone would have experienced it at some point or another. Um, and yeah, these are just some of the really obvious times when we experience it. And here is a question for you guys, like, where does envy come from? I've thought about it a lot, and I think it comes from comparison. I think it stems from a place of comparison, which I talked a lot about comparing ourselves and our achievements and our timelines in episode 7. If you haven't listened to that, I'll pop it in the episode description. But yeah, I basically talked about sort of the benefits of comparison and comparing ourselves to other people, and how it is, comparing ourselves has a really important role in helping us improve on ourselves and helping us do better, because we see other people, and we perceive other people doing better than us in some area of their lives, and we look to them and compare ourselves to them, to that. And it's a really motivating way for us to, sort of get a grip on what we want and where we need to grow and learn and improve upon ourselves. But yeah, I think envy accompanies that comparison, where we look to other people, see what they have, and notice that we are lacking what they have, right? It's a really good way for us to gauge what we want from our lives. But I think, just as like comparison can get out of hand and it can lead to our own suffering, I think envy, when we leave it unchecked, it also leads to internal suffering and a whole heap of, it can lead to like broken relationships with people, and yeah, and suffering. And what I mean by leaving envy unchecked is that when we don't do anything with our envy, that's when it leads to suffering, right? So like, when we wish another person didn't have their quality or their skill or achievement, instead of understanding that we simply want that thing, that is when we let envy spiral and we let it take over, and we build up all this resentment. Like, it becomes more resentment than admiration, you know? Like, if you think about, I don't know, like relationships, for example, you've got a really good friend and they've just got into a serious relationship. And at the start, like, you're happy for them. You're so glad that they've found this person that they can share their experiences with and whatnot. And they're such a solid team together, right? And then, maybe time goes by and you start to secretly get happy when they have fights, or when they celebrate a 1 year anniversary or a 2 year anniversary. You're secretly, a little bit you know kind of sad about it. That's when envy creeps in. And I think, like, when envy gets out of control is when we would rather see someone else suffer from misfortune than for ourselves to actually put in the effort to gain what they have. So if we are envious about our friend being in a really healthy relationship, if we are secretly hoping that their relationship's going to fall apart, or someone's going to cheat, or, they're going to break up, or, finding joy when they do, have little arguments and things like that, if we would rather see that happen, that's when we know that our envy has gone too far. We haven't acknowledged that maybe what we are wanting is our own healthy relationship. Maybe if we are in a relationship and we are getting envious of other people in healthy relationships, like, look at yourself. Look at your own relationship. What is lacking there? Because what you are envious of in someone else's relationship is what you are lacking in your own. Or if you don't have a relationship, if you're getting really resentful towards people getting all lovey-dovey and things like that, what is that telling you about your own life? It doesn't mean that you want something bad to happen to beautiful couples in your life. It just means that some part of you is really desiring that intimate connection with another person, right? You are craving a relationship if you don't have one, or you are craving more connection in your relationship if you do have one. Envy is it's such a really beneficial tool when we understand it well. But if we don't, all we're really doing is going out of our own way to exert negative energy onto someone, rather than looking at ourselves internally, noticing what it is we feel that we're lacking, and then working towards, improving that. So some things that I have learned from envy, and I think, like, for quite a while, it came up a lot in my life, and I had a lot of experiences that allowed me to understand envy, how it actually feels in my body, what the purpose is that it's trying to serve. And I think the biggest takeaway that I learned about envy is that it is a motivator, right? It shows us where we need to improve in our lives, what we need to work on, what we need to move towards. And I think envy is both an internal and external feeling, right? We can be envious of a quality that someone else has, but we can also be envious of an accomplishment that someone has had. A really game-changing moment where I finally, like, the penny dropped on understanding envy and the purpose of it was when I was doing an eye gazing practice on a retreat. And I was gazing into my friend Maya's eyes. And at the time, we really did not know each other that well. It was, I don't know, it might have been like day 2, or might have even been day 1 of this retreat. Like, we'd gotten to know each other very briefly, and then it was like, get into the really deep, emotionally, like, challenging stuff, right? And if you haven't done eye gazing, it can be really, like, intimidating and confronting and a little bit awkward, because you're just staring into someone's eyes without talking. And it's really beautiful because so many different things come up. And different things come up depending on whose eyes you're staring into. It's quite a spiritual experience. But anyways, I was staring into the eyes of beautiful Maya, powerhouse of a woman, and we were having this exchange of deep admiration for each other and each other's qualities, right? For me, I was like in awe of Maya's ability to, like, just the way that she speaks and presents herself, and how she so confidently and so boldly expresses how she feels. And I remember writing it in our little journal, like, afterwards, because we were, encouraged to write about who we felt a strong connection to. And mine was with Maya, and just how deeply in awe I was of her, this quality that she had, this ability that she had to speak so beautifully, and to just how she was with her words. And then at the same time, she had actually had a really similar experience of having, like, a deep admiration for me, and she was, like, in awe of my ability to dance and gracefully move my body, and she really admired that about me. And so it was this exchange of admiration. And what I noticed within that eye gazing, practice between us was that you can deeply admire a quality about someone, or just anything. You can have a deep admiration and awe and love for some part of another person. And if you do not, what is it? Like, if you don't know how to navigate that admiration, it can actually lead to envy. Like, we can look to someone and really appreciate something that they have, and we can acknowledge that, it's something that we don't have yet, that we haven't developed within ourselves enough, right? That's all good and well. But that in itself can turn to envy. Sometimes we don't know what to do with all of that awe and admiration and appreciation for somebody. And sometimes that can lead to us getting really hostile to other people and building up resentment and not liking somebody purely because we want that thing that they have. And we don't yet understand that we can actually put in the effort to obtain that quality. It's so much easier to spend our time judging another person or hating another person for what they have and what we lack than it is to put in the effort to build that skill, or, build on our skill set of speaking, or build on our ability to dance with grace. And yeah, in that eye gazing experience, in that moment is when I really understood this, this is where envy can take over, right? This admiration and love for another person is such a beautiful experience and sensation, and knowing full well that it can lead to a negative experience, right? Which is crazy, but that is how envy works. And externally, we can envy things happening outside of us. Like, who has gone on social media, on Facebook or Instagram, and then you see someone you went to school with has got engaged or married or had a baby or bought a house or any of the sorts. We feel envious for things happening outside of us, for someone else's achievements, right? And I think envy as a motivator, it just shows us that we maybe want those same things. And we don't have to get resentful towards someone. We don't have to get, standoffish towards other people because they've achieved something that we haven't yet. All we need to do is acknowledge that, hey, I want that too. And that's okay. And, I can put in the effort to go and achieve those things, right? I've also found that envy can send us down a rabbit hole in a really positive way, right? Because once we understand that we only experience envy towards people because of the things that they have that we don't, then we're able to gain insight about the things that we want, and we're able to focus all in on gaining resources about that thing. We can we're able to add to our toolbox and create a big bucket of information and tools that help us, that lead us down the trajectory that we want to go, down that path that we want to go. If we get really jealous and envious of someone who's just gone overseas, acknowledging that we're only feeling that way because we want to achieve the same thing, and sometimes, when we do gain that clarity and understanding, then we go down this rabbit hole of researching how to travel overseas, what do we need, how to get a visa, all these things, right? Or if you've just seen someone put up a post where they've bought a house and you're like, oh, I wonder, maybe their mum and dad probably clearly helped them out with that. Instead of getting resentful towards them for their accomplishment, and understanding that, oh, I'm only feeling like this because I also want to buy a house at some point. You can go down a rabbit hole of learning how to save, learning about the housing market, and learning about all of these things that you need to know when trying to buy a house, right? Envy really helps us develop our skills in the areas that we feel lacking when we understand that wanting what someone else has is natural, is normal, and it's just pointing us in the direction of something that we want and somewhere that we want to go. I've also found that envy is really tricky to navigate. It's really hard to try and understand. And when we leave it unchecked, it can lead to loss. It can um, lead to broken relationships and friendships. And, I have experienced it firsthand where I have been experiencing envy towards a person. And instead of, I didn't have the awareness then that I was envious because I wanted something that I didn't have. It was, I put all of my energy into, hating on people. Well, not hating, but, wishing bad things upon people that I cared about instead of taking a look at myself and being like, all right, well, what do I need to improve? Like, what are the areas that I feel like I'm lacking in, and how am I going to build upon those areas? I've also found that it harms you more than the person that you're envious of. Like, it's just an internal battle with yourself, and the other person most of the time isn't even aware that you're secretly like in competition with them, or you're secretly hoping that something bad is going to happen to them. Envy is about you and your core beliefs, and it has nothing to do with the other person that you're envious of. And I truly think that we envy those who are similar to us. Because we believe that some quality that they have, or some experience that they've had, or a skill set that they embody is something that we know, part of us knows is attainable. Like, we're able to achieve what they have. And even though we're jealous and we're resentful towards them because they have something that we don't, part of us knows that we can also obtain that thing, right? We can, our envy holds meaning, and we wouldn't be envious of something another person has if that thing wasn't meaningful to us in some sort of way, whether that is like you become envious if someone has bought their first home and you're resentful to them. Why is it? Unpack the reason why you are feeling resentful. Like, what is the reason? And it can be a lot of things. Maybe you are really craving the stability of a home base. Maybe you yourself really want a home. If you're envious of someone's characteristics, like, what is it specifically that you're resenting them for? What about them do you wish you had that you feel like you don't? And, how are you going to go about obtaining it, right? Because part of you knows that you can. Part of you knows that you can accomplish. Part of you knows that you can be more of what someone else has, whether that is, soft spoken or empathetic, or, fun or carefree or less stressed, anything like that. Like, we are envious of those who are similar to us. Envy is meaningful, it holds meaning. We're envious of people that are close to us because we deeply care about that thing that they have that we don't, whether it is a quality or a possession or an experience. But, it's all about learning how to navigate our envy, right? And I think first things first, like, recognize that it is envy that you are feeling. How does it feel within you? And who is it directed towards? Why? Why is it directed towards them? Get curious about where that envy comes from. What belief is the motivator behind the envy? Do you does part of you find joy in someone else failing in their career because you believe that constant success equates to worthiness? And if you're not constantly succeeding, then no one else can, right? And if you're not succeeding, then clearly you don't have worth. And if you don't have worth, then no one else deserves to. Like, what is the big motivator? What are the beliefs that are behind your envy? right? And then have gratitude, appreciate what you do have. Hold space for the part of you that wants what you don't have, while also being really thankful and grateful for what you do have. And think about all the times that you've moved through tricky situations where, envy has been the core of a problem, right? Hold gratitude for yourself for what you can achieve, right? What you have been through, what you've experienced, what you have accomplished through the challenges, right? Prove to yourself that you can, accomplish something big and challenging again. And then pivot, make changes, right? What is your envy telling you? What is it that you want? And what's the underlying need? And then how will you go about getting it, right? I think, like I was saying earlier, all of these sort of fear, envy, negative emotions, emotions that bring about a really strong, uncomfortable response, are there to show us what we want and what we need to move towards, what we really desire from our life. And I think when we gain a better understanding of what envy is and why we feel it, we can approach life differently, right? We can take our shame for, wishing misfortune upon other people. We can take that shame out of the equation, and we can see envy as just an emotion that everyone experiences that helps us understand our deepest desires and the things that we yearn for. Envy is a path to a new opportunity for us. It is a path towards our growth. It's a path towards the things that we want, who we want to be, what we want to achieve, what we want to get out of our life, right? That's all envy is there for. And I think when you leave it unchecked, you can end up hurting some people. It can end in friendship breakups and relationship breakups and just strained relationships and interactions with people. Right? Just hold space for yourself when you are feeling envy. Accept that it's there, accept that it's normal. Don't feel shamed for not wanting to celebrate other people's success. Just identify that that's what's going on, that envy is the reason behind it, and try and unpack what the big need and desire is behind that. But yeah, I hope you have enjoyed the episode. That's all from me today. It really means a lot that you guys have listened, and hopefully I will see you for next week's episode. Sending lots of love out there. Yeah, share the episode around. But that's all from me today. The world is waiting for you, so get on out there and enjoy your big, beautiful life. Bye.